Hey guys, how's it going? In this little deal, please excuse everything. On my video here, please watch it all the way through. On this video, I'm going to explain how James transformed into Pop Pop. It's going to be a little bit of a long video. It's going to be a little bit of an emotional video. Please stick around for the whole thing. And I'm going to pause y'all for just a moment. When we come back, I'll get back to it. Alright guys, here we go. Hope you guys watch this all the way through. This is the story of how James became Pop Pop. May 15th, 1976. Me, James, was born in Denver, Colorado. To my mother, LaDonna Gill, who at the time was not married. She was still a teenager. I've never met my real father. I've never seen him. I've never met him. I don't know much about him. But anyway, so she had me at 16 in Denver, Colorado. And we lived there for a year. And in May 15th of 1977, we moved in to Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. We moved to Pauls Valley on my first birthday. Growing up, I had some little bit of health issues, nothing major. I fell off of some bleachers at the park in our hometown, and they had me seeing neurologists and stuff because at first they thought I was having seizures, and kind of find out it wasn't seizures. It was a really bad case of vertigo, due to the fall. When I'd go over hills and stuff, my eyes would roll up in the back of my head, kind of like a seizure type deal. And when I was about 7, they had figured that out. When my mom took a recording of me one night sleeping, and when I was sleeping, it sounded like I was gasping for air. So they immediately went in Ada, Oklahoma, and they removed my adenoids and put tubes in my ears, and I no longer had any more episodes after that. But anyway, before any of all that happened, we didn't grow up rich. My mom and all them were dirt poor. My mom was a waitress, sometimes worked two different jobs. She was a waitress at one and a manager at another facility when I was growing up. Okay. Later on in life, she met my dad. Not my biological dad, but who I called my dad when I was 6. Her and him got together, and he had 2 children prior to them being married, and she had 3 kids, me, my brother, and my sister, and I'm the oldest out of her 3 children. I'm the oldest. Anyway, so she's dated all these men before. She'd been married in the past before. She'd been married to my brother and my sister's dad, which wasn't my biological father. And right pretty much as soon as she met my dad, I pretty much knew that was meant to be of who I wanted as my dad, because when they went on their first date, it wasn't him like taking her to the bar or to them out to eat or anything. He brought his 2 kids and invited her to bring her 3 children. I knew right then and there that there was something going on. Hey, this guy is really out there to actually make a family. Once again, he wasn't my biological father. But anyway, so later on in life, they got married, and he became my dad. And then when I was about 13 or 14, they split up and got a divorce. And when they got a divorce, even on the weekends from the age of 13 all the way up to I was 16, 17 years old or whatever, I'd go over to his house every weekend. And my mom's like, hey, you don't have to go over at Jimmy's house anymore. We're not married anymore. And I basically made it perfectly clear that you left him, we didn't. You know, that was dad to us. There was no step in this. Even with me and my wife and kids, there is no step. When you marry someone, you marry your whole family. It's not a stepchild. It's not a. I can't express this enough. I know some people will say, well, my stepson, my stepkid, my step this, my step that. Bullshit. Your family. He never treated me like a stepchild. He never once said I'm your stepdad. He was dad. And even to this day, even though my mom and him aren't married and he's passed on but now, but my siblings from his side, Melinda and James, see, that's what was confusing about everything with us growing up, was there was two Jameses in the household, me and my stepbrother. So anyway, long story short, before that, my great grandmother, when I was born, and my great grandmother on my grandmother's side, my grandmother's mom didn't call me James. She called me Jimmy Joe. And then later on, they shortened it to JJ. So everyone in my family calls me JJ. And very rare do you hear any of them. Well, Amber and her side of the family all call me James. But my side of the family all calls me JJ. It's short for James Joshua. My great grandmother never would call me James Joshua. She said, that's my little Jimmy Joe. And so I picked up the name JJ. So everyone growing up knows me as JJ. High school, grade school, all that. So it made it even easier in the household when we had 3 children and 2 boys' names are James. So if James got called, not both of us would come running, just one. You see what I'm saying? And then my older sister Melinda, she's older than me by about a year and a half. She's not my biological, but even though mom and dad aren't together anymore and dad's passed away, we're still family. I mean, we still call each other on birthdays. We still go to family functions together. We didn't ever leave each other as a family because that's not how we were raised. Just because the parents split up doesn't mean you have to. Okay. Anyway, growing up, we were dirt poor. Mom worked, like I said, as a waitress, and she was a manager at the place. My dad worked for the city of our town. He worked for the city of Pauls Valley, Oklahoma, for many years. My dad was the type of guy that he didn't spank his children. He would verbally assault you. And what I mean by verbally assault, the more harsher words he said to you, the more he loved you. And I mean that with all due respect to my dad. He's the kind of guy that look at you and tell you excuse my language, you were a fucking idiot. And that was basically his way of telling you he loved you. And I mean, there have been times that I call him once I got older. Hey, I need you to do something. One day, matter of fact, just bring the story to light. It wasn't too long before he passed. I'd call him one day. Me and the wife had a bedroom at our house, and in order to change the light bulbs in this bedroom, our ceilings were so tall you had to use a ladder. Well, I'm terrified of heights. Okay, so I called him. I said, he answered, and he said, "What in the F are you calling me for? I'm out hunting." I said, "What kind of moron would take their phone hunting if they're hunting?" You know, I just fired back at him because that's what he wanted you to do, is fire back at him. I'm like, "I need you to get your ladder and come over here and change the light bulb in our bedroom." He's like, "All right, well, you make sure you either have a cold glass of Dr. Pepper or a cold glass of tea when I get there." Never said anything else about it. Didn't bitch that he didn't get nothing while he was out hunting. One of his kids needed him, and he came running. Because that's the power of love, guys. That's the power of love when you're a parent. Never, I mean, other than cussing me out for calling him because he was out hunting, he come over and he changed my light bulb in my room. But anyway, we grew up dirt poor. Mom worked 2 jobs, Dad worked. And then when Mom and Dad got a divorce, it made it a little more tougher. Mom wasn't around a whole lot. Like I said, they split up when I was about 13. So guess who had to step up and be the man of the family? I did. I had 2 siblings. One sibling 3 years younger than me. One sibling 4 years younger than me. Or actually 6. I'm sorry, he was born in 80. So, and I was born in 76. Okay. Or 4 years. Yeah, I'm sorry, 4 years. My bad. My math's off, guys. Sorry. Brain fart. Boop. Anyway, so here I was 13 taking care of a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old while Mom worked 2 jobs. So we grew up being on food stamps and wasn't rich, wasn't what some born with a silver spoon in your mouth, type person. And then here I was being a rough and rowdy teenager and, getting a little trouble here, a little trouble there. And I never wasn't really into major trouble. I wasn't a major trouble teenager. I wasn't the kind of kid that went out and did too much horrible shit because I was also trying to help my mother raise 2 children. So once I turned 18, I was a senior in high school. And at 18 years old, being 18, I started drinking a little bit, hanging out with buddies. And these buddies had cousins. And I got one of their cousins pregnant while I was a senior in high school. So, on a party one night, while I was been drinking and carrying on and hooting and hollering, I got a friend of mine's cousin pregnant. And in January of 1996, I became a dad. Now, at first, this woman had nothing to do with me. She kept denying I was the kid's father. And then she got into a bunch of trouble about 4 or 5 years later. She'd still been denying that I was the father, but I was ruled in DHS logs that I was a possible father. And they looked at me and asked me, if you're this kid's dad, do you want custody of him? And my reaction to him, well, there's a bear shit in the woods, because after I found out I had my son, I had 9 weeks left in my senior year. 9 weeks left in my senior year. I quit high school. I quit high school with 9 weeks left to go of my senior year. Because I thought this, I thought I had the big head on my shoulders. I was going to graduate I didn't need to graduate. I was going to be a dad. I didn't need to graduate. Whatever. And so, anyway, later on, when Trey was born, I didn't know he was my son at first. So later on, I went to Job Corps, and I got my GED. And when I got my GED, I came back home. I went to I went to Job Corps in Ozark, Arkansas. It's just right outside of Fort Smith. It was basically like 150, 160 miles from my hometown. So, I moved to Arkansas to get my GED with Job Corps. Got my GED, scored extremely freaking high. And while I'm in high school, guys, not only was I playing in the band and I was in football, so at halftime, when you're a band player in a small town and you play football, at halftime you take your shoulder pads off and you put your fucking drum set on, because I was a drummer, okay? So, anyway, so I got my GED. I started dating a girl while I was there up at Job Corps, and I moved back to my hometown. I left Job Corps, and she came with me. She moved back to my hometown with me. We were together a little over 3 years, and in that 3 year time frame, me and her had no biological children together. In the process of all this, I'd got custody of Trey because his mom was not worthy of being a parent to him. She was in some trouble and had some drug issues, and but before I got with the girl from Job Corps, after me and Trey's mother had split up, or we wasn't really even a couple. It was a drinking thing, guys. I was a teenage kid. Okay, my oldest daughter, I started dating her mother when she was a senior in high school, and me and her oldest mother was due to be married. We were fiance, boyfriend, and girlfriend. This is before I got with the girl from Job Corps. And in 1999, my oldest daughter's mother was pregnant. She was 4 or 5 months pregnant at this time. Me and her mom got into a little argument. I got in an argument. Never once raised my hand to her. I'm not an abusive guy. I don't hit and slap on women or nothing like that. We got in an argument over some money. Okay? Got in an argument over some money. Told her to drive me out to my mother's house. I got out. We said a few harsh words to each other. I kicked the tire of the car, walked off. Later that night, get a phone call from her mother, from her mother, because her mother and my stepdad, my mom's boyfriend at the time, they had went to school together. So she talked to him and told him that my daughter's mother was going to be moving back with them, and I was not going to be involved in this child's life during the rest of the pregnancy. I kind of just soaked it up. It bothered me at first. I did everything, I was a 19, 20-year-old guy doing everything I could to try to get her back. And right before I left for Job Corps, I think it was, matter of fact, it was Father's Day of 2000. My oldest daughter, Kara's grandmother, called to let my mom's boyfriend, I guess you could say husband, let him know that her daughter had given birth to Kara back in April of 2000. April of 2000, I'm sorry. And this is Father's Day night of 2000 that I found this out. By then, Kara was already 3 months old. And while I was at Job Corps, me and Kara's mom text each other, but not back then. Texting wasn't a thing. It was email. We emailed each other back and forth a little bit. She was kind of filling me in on some of the stuff that Kara had done, and I'd basically told her mother that I wanted a paternity test because there had been rumors that the child possibly may not have been mine, and I just wanted something to rule that out. Okay. So, anyway, so we fast forward a little bit. That's in 2000. I get together with the girlfriend I was with in 2000 at Job Corps, and we were together almost right around 3 years. And in the process of all this, me and the girlfriend had some little disputes. And I had gotten custody of Trey. And when I got custody of Trey, Amber, Ninny, her mother lived in the apartment below me. Okay. So she lived in the apartment below me, Amber's mother did. And so Amber and my girlfriend at the time had become friends. Well, later on down the line, me and the girlfriend had some problems. And I ended up, of September of 2002, had a, sorry guys, hang on. Sorry guys, bill collector. Anyway, so in the end of August, first around September of 2002, me and Amber had a one night deal. And mind you, me and this other girl had been together almost 3 years. We didn't have any kids together. I, at the time, was working at Taco Bell. I'd started, when I came back home from Job Corps, I'd started working at Taco Bell. And I'd already been there pretty close to 3 years. I was already management there and everything. I'd found out later on while I was working at Taco Bell that Amber was pregnant. Now, at the time, Amber was married to another person. Well, I knew this man wasn't the kid's father because he was in jail. So I knew right away it wasn't him being the dad because her ex-husband was in jail at the time that this all happened. And she had already pretty much broke it off with him anyway. So, at the time, Isaiah was maybe a year old, maybe less than a year old. I don't really remember. He might have been really just turned one when this one night thing happened. In April of 2003, Amber gave birth to our daughter, Karen Lee. Well, I had moved away while she was pregnant with Karen Lee because me and Amber weren't an item. I'd gotten back with the ex-girlfriend. Okay. So we moved off to Oregon. Some of her family had moved up that way, and we were having some struggles and everything. And she's like, "Hey, let's move to Oregon and start all over. Try to live a life up there." And I agreed to it. After being with my job for 3 years, I left. And I went up to Oregon and I started working at a freeze-dry plant. If y'all don't know what a freeze-dry plant is, if you guys have ever eaten the cereal Kellogg's, it has the freeze-dried strawberries in it. I was one of the guys that helped made that kind of shit. They would freeze-dry fruit and stuff, and they would do pharmaceutical stuff and things like that. They would bring it like negative 70 degrees, and then bring it back up to temperature, and then put it back at negative 70 degrees. So, we moved to Oregon for a little while, for a couple of months. And in June of 2003, we came back to Oklahoma with the intentions of me getting my son and bringing him back to Oregon with me. Because my oldest daughter was living with her mother. At that time, there still hadn't been a paternity test to determine I was her father. Because I had put in a request to do a paternity test because I wasn't being docked child support or anything for her because her mom hadn't named the father of the child. Or maybe she had and they just... Anyway, it wasn't on paper. I was her dad at the time. Me and Jan came back to Oklahoma with the intentions of getting my son and going back to Oregon. When we got back to Oklahoma, me and her had a major, major, major fight, and we ended our relationship in June of that year. A couple of days had passed, and I made it perfectly clear to Jan that I was not going to get back with her. A couple of days had passed, and while we were eating, and before we had split up, we were eating at a pizza place in Oklahoma, and we seen Amber and the new baby, and Isaiah. Isaiah was already born. And Amber's like, "Well, let me introduce you to my new daughter, Karen Lee." Well, Amber had never put two and two together, And I turned, of course, white as a ghost because she looked almost just like, pretty kind of like me, more like her mom, more like Amber than me. But you could see my features in her and my mom's features in her. And so me and Jan split up, and I started talking to Amber. And I made it clear to Jan that I wanted nothing else to do with her. We were going to end our relationship. And so me and her split up, and me and Amber started talking. And I looked at Amber one day. I said, I just want you to know that I'm not just speaking to you because I think Karen Lee is mine. She just kind of looked at me. She's like, oh my God, I didn't even give that a thought. And so she, I guess, had completely slipped her mind that we had something happen that night. And just didn't really think it through all the way. And I'm like, so anyway, but me and Amber started out just being friends. Wasn't nothing, no hugging, no kissing, no do anything with each other. She was hanging out with me. And we were just hanging out at my grandparents because, like I said, I moved back to Oklahoma. I didn't have a home in place yet for me and my son. I was staying at my grandparents' house until I landed me a job. I landed me a job pretty quick. I'm usually really quick about landing a job. It wasn't nothing for me to be able to land a job, guys. So I started working at Dollar General. Yeah, Dollar General, not a warehouse. Dollar General that you walk into and you buy $1.99 soda pops or whatever. And at the time me and Amber started seeing each other, I was making $150 a week, guys. And that's not exaggerating. I was making $150 a week. And me and Amber was talking a little bit. And we still hadn't made it official. We were boyfriend and girlfriend. We were still in the talks. Amber had gotten her a tribal home over at a tribal house over in Davis, Oklahoma, which is Chickasaw Nation territory. And hang on a second, guys, and I'll get back to you. Hang on just a second. Sorry, guys. I'm going to tell a little bit of the story. I do get a little nervous, so I'm smoking. Anyway, so once she got with me, I was making $150 a week, okay? I was just a clerk at a convenience store, or I guess you can say market, whatever it is. Back then, Dollar General wasn't it what it is today. They didn't sell frozen pizzas and meat and all that crap. You're there basically to get your essentials like trash bags and potato chips, 2-liter bottles of pop, shit like that. But it's really changed since then. But anyway, so I tell my grandparents, hey, I'm going to help Amber move into her house. And I take all of her stuff. And Amber gets a text message because she has what's called a lifeline. But, cell phones wasn't a real big deal back then. Because she was getting rental assistance through her tribe or whatever. They gave her an emergency cell phone. So she was able to receive text messages and stuff like that. My grandmother had texted her and said, tell JJ that his stuff's sitting on the porch. So I'm like, okay. My stuff's sitting on the porch. So I told her and she told me what my grandmother had said. And she's like, you can stay here with me for a little while. I'll just have to add you on the lease. It's probably not going to be a permanent thing. We're together as a couple a little bit, but we're not real serious yet. I'm like, all right, no big deal. That was the summer of 2003. And so I'm living there with her. She's got a 3-bedroom house. The moment I move in with her, I immediately quit my job over at the Dollar General because it's in a town 20 miles from us. So I started working for the tribe, the Chickasaw Nation tribe. I hired on there as a maintenance guy, and because I was who I was, because I'm very, very intelligent, guys. I run an IQ of 180. Um, I went from being a maintenance man to being a cashier, from cashier to being in the count room, from being in the count room to being in the vault, where I was responsible for well over $1 million in the vault, and went from doing the vault into doing I was their in-house gaming technician. Um, the what they call here in Oklahoma are what they call chiefs of the tribe. They don't call them chiefs; they call them governors. So the governor of the Chickasaw Nation is Bill Anatubby. They handpicked me to train Bill Anatubby's son Brian on getting his gaming license and stuff, because I just knew what I was doing. Okay, to make a long story short, I knew what I was doing. Um, my manager at Treasure Valley had told me that I was moving up the fastest he's ever seen anybody move up on the chain in his life. Within a 6-month period, I went from being hired on at maintenance to where I was their in-house gaming tech, and there was talks of me being transferred to WinStar, which is the world's biggest casino. And while I was doing this, I was also working for Budweiser. While I was working at Treasure Valley, I would get off at Treasure Valley, leave there, and go load trucks, because at the time I didn't have a CDL yet. I would go load trucks at Budweiser in Ardmore, Oklahoma, using a forklift and stuff. Did that for a while. And then later on, Amber had gotten pregnant with our, at the time, Karen Lee was 1. Amber found out she was pregnant with our son Jesse. When Amber found out she was pregnant with Jesse, it was a really, 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 really rocky pregnancy. Right off the bat, we thought we lost him. Our little town, about 8 miles from us, they didn't have a unit that delivers babies. And that's where Amber found out she was pregnant with him. And they told her, they're like, look, you're having a miscarriage, but we can't do anything about it here. You're going to have to go to the tribal hospital tomorrow to have them do the proper measures. When we got to the tribal hospital says, the baby's got a strong heartbeat. There's no reason to perform anything. The baby is still alive. And so Amber had a real, hard time with the pregnancy and everything. And this is kind of where I get emotional, guys. Anyway, so in about every other couple weeks, we were at the hospital because she was having some kind of medical issue going on with Jesse. My birthday that year, we didn't even we celebrated my birthday in the emergency room, okay, because Amber was having complications with the pregnancy. A week later, at 7 months pregnant, Amber delivered Jesse at home. There wasn't enough time to call an ambulance. There wasn't enough time to get any help. He was right really close to 7 months. She delivered him in her arms. She saw him take a deep breath, and he died right then. EMS got there, and I advised them that, they advised us that since they didn't think his lungs were fully functionable yet, that, and as long as it already had been, to just let it go how it is. So May 22nd of 2024, was one of the most devastating days of our lives. Jesse was born and died the same day. And mind you, I was scheduled to start truck driving school a week after that. I held off on going to truck driving school for a few months to help Amber get through all this. And in November of that year, I went to truck driving school. Got my CDL. Trained myself to be an over-the-road truck driver because I started working for the oil field. And when you work for the oil field, sometimes you're taught to take things across state lines and stuff like that. So I never physically went with a trainer. I was hauling rock for the oil field, equipment for the oil field, things like that. And when you cross enough state lines with oil field equipment, you've crossed enough state lines, you don't have to be put with a trainer. So later on, I went in to do an OTR. Hang on. So later I went on to being an OTR driver. And not just OTR, I also did some kind of local stuff where I was based out of a local company, but we traveled Texas, Arkansas, things like that for the oil field. So I was still crossing state lines. I was considered an OTR driver. I worked for the oil field. I was making damn good money. I'd went from working 2 jobs, and in the process of all this, of me being before I got my CDL, I was hit with a paternity test on my daughter, Kara. I want to say that was around right after I got my raise as being a gaming tech. And as soon as I walked in the paternity office and seen her, I looked at Amber straight up. I said, they can do a paternity test all they want to. That's my kid. I mean, she looked identical to me except she was a female. And she ended up becoming mine. And of course, they talked to her mother. They're like, well, if she does turn out to be his child, do you want him to pay back child support? And I'm looking at DHS worker like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's hold on a minute. Number one, until just a few months ago, me getting a summons to have a paternity test, I didn't even know this child was mine. And they're like, well, it's up to the mother to decide on whether or not you owe back child support. So, of course, she came back mine. So, the mom, because of the hate she had for me, I paid my back child support. I had to pay 3 years back child support. So then it got to where they were, I was paying whatever it was a month child support wise. They based it off of what I was making at the casino because I hadn't started to be a CDL driver yet. I paid a certain percentage out of what I made. But anyway, and then I went in and got my CDL. And I went in from working 2 jobs to where we were living paycheck to paycheck to me getting a CDL, and I was working for the oil field. And then I went hauling stuff for Walmart for a little while. Went back doing oil field stuff. Always kept busy. I missed a lot of my kids' lives. A lot of Christmases, birthdays. Showed up like on time for Thanksgiving, just eat dinner and then leave back out on the truck. Christmas Day, I'd come in Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, open gifts with them. Christmas night, leave back out. It was a normal thing for my kids to see. Okay. But I was making good money. A man and a woman gets together, and me and Amber never, ever fought. Not even to this day. We've been together almost 21 years. Never to this day have we ever fought about cash. ever, because we started from nothing. We started from nothing, guys. I was making $150 a week. There's a difference between you marrying someone for because you both might just love each other, and then later on in life it become a real love relationship. Me and Amber had true love. It wasn't about money. It was about us caring for each other. And when I got with Amber, yeah, I knew she had previous children outside of me. And she knew I had previous children with outside of her. None of these children are treated different. None. She had 3 prior. I had 2 prior. And we have 3 together. So, I go to truck driving school. And while I'm at truck driving school, I took on some local jobs. Not really local, just staying kind of close to home. I worked for a rock quarry. I had my CDL because we'd found out she was pregnant with my son Ryan. That was in 2005. He had to have been conceived somewhere around Valentine's. Y'all do the math, because he was born at the end of November. So back then we didn't have really cable television. We didn't watch much TV. We did, but if we put something on, it was like VHS tapes for the kids or something like that. Me and Amber have a real true life love story, guys. Never was about money or anything like that. She got scared, of course, because of what happened and with the previous, pregnancy with Jesse. And Ryan got the full term. November 18th, she had a doctor's appointment. And when she had that doctor's appointment, I was scheduled to go out the next day because it was the opening day of rifle season. But anyway, it was the opening day of rifle season the very next day. I'd already bought my tags. I was already ready to go. Me and my buddy that I worked with, he had us a hunting spot set up. I had all this shit purchased. Well, we went to the doctor's appointment, and her midwife said, you need to cancel your hunting trip. I'm like, well, I've already got my tags and everything. And she's like, she's dilated to a 3. And I'm not promising you guys might make it all the way back home before you might have to turn around and come back here and deliver him. We got home. She did all right that night and everything. Everything was fine and dandy. The next morning I got up. Me and my oldest son Trey, we were outside hanging up Christmas lights. It was about a week before Thanksgiving. We were outside holding Christmas lights. And Isaiah at the time was, this was 2005, so he was pretty close to 4. Or he may already been 4. He come out and he said, Dad, Mom peed all over the floor. And I just started laughing. I'm like, Trey, go in the house, get you some clothes gathered up. Amber's in labor. And so she's in there, and I'm like, how far are the contractions? And she told me, I'm like, all right. So we loaded the kids up. We got in the car. And I remembered I forgot to lock the front door. So I got out of the car, ran all the way around the house to lock the front door, ran back and got in the car. We went and dropped the kids off at some family member's house, so that we could go to Ada, Oklahoma, so we could deliver Ryan. Well, while she's in labor, we're all in there taking pictures, and, my grandmother's there. I've got family there. My dad's there. My mom's there. All that stuff, and we're taking pictures. And I let my grandmother and my cousin go in the room, and the midwife comes out and runs my grandmother and my cousin out and looks at the nurse and said, my son was delivered by a doctor named Dr. Siegley. Said, and she was the midwife. She said, get Siegley in here and get Siegley in here now. And I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? And then she kind of looked at me at first. At first, she wasn't saying nothing. I said, tell me what's going on. She said, we lost the baby's heartbeat. I'm like, oh, shit. So, Siegley gets there, breaks the alarm to get into the baby unit at the hospital, okay? Breaks the alarm because he didn't get his code in right, and he ripped the door off, and it sounded the alarm off in the hospital because he didn't get the code in right. When he opened that door, he bursted that door open. Well, he got in there. He got Ryan out of there. They had to do emergency C-section. And while they were in there, they asked her if she wanted to go ahead and have her tubes tied. Mind you, Amber had started having kids since 1998. So from 98 to 2005, she had been pregnant all those years. From 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. She went 8 years of being pregnant. And because she had already talked to me, she's like, when he asked me if I want to have my tubes tied, I'm going to request to have my tubes tied. Well, we didn't know it was going to be done that day. It was going to be scheduled to have her tubes tied because she said, I haven't seen my feet since a full year since 1998. And I'm like, okay, you can have your tubes tied, whatever. Well, they had Ryan out of her on emergency C-section, tied her tubes, had him out, tied her tubes, and her sewed back up in 11 minutes. And Ryan was born November 19th of 2005 at 5 pounds, 9 ounces. Ryan is now 18 years old. So, we fast forward a little bit. I was home a little bit still, I hadn't quit working at the rock quarry yet. And I told her, I'm like, I'm gonna start making really good money going to this other job. So I started working for a company that hauls hazmat. So we moved from that house to a different home, which was a town my mother lived in, and two of my siblings. And so we lived there. We moved in there in 2005, and May 20th of 2008, me and Amber had already been together 5 years. We'd already been together 5 years. And she had told me, she said, are you ever going to put a ring on my finger? Or are we just going to live as boyfriend and girlfriend? And I had scheduled us to have a family deal Memorial Day weekend at our hometown city lake. And they had a pavilion and all that. I said, hey, we're having that family reunion Memorial Day weekend. Since everybody's going to be there, let's just get married. She's like, are you serious? Are you serious? Are you serious? I'm like, yeah. So, May 20th, 2008, me and Amber had been up most of the night before, because back then, YouTube wasn't a deal where you can download music and all that stuff. We were doing stuff, downloading music to a CD for our wedding. And we were up late. And I always used to like to tease Amber. Get up, run pots and pans, start smacking them around. Get up, get up. House is on fire, house is on fire. Well, my oldest boy come to me. It was the last day of school for their area. Okay. It was the last day of school. We didn't make them go because it was the last day. Trey comes up to me. He says, "Dad, I smell smoke." I'm like, well, I was fully clothed. I hadn't took my shoes off. I was in my pants and everything. I fell asleep on the couch. Because we were up late doing the stuff on the CDs. So Isaiah, Karen Lee, and Ryan had crawled in bed with her. So instead of trying to like scooch all them over and find a spot, I just went in there and laid on the couch and fell asleep. So I got up and I was fully clothed. And I said, "Yeah, I smell it, Trey." And he was coughing real hard because the smell was getting kind of harsh. I said, "Go outside, take some deep breaths. You know, the smoke's getting to you." Well, I walked into Ryan and Isaiah's bedroom, and they shared a bedroom where the laundry room was. And all of a sudden, after I told Trey to go outside, I hear woof. When I heard the woof, the day before I had put air conditioners into the windows. I'd cleaned them all out and everything and put them in the windows. And that air conditioner had sparked, and when it sparked, it caught the fucking curtain on fire. And it started spreading so fast. Their room was kind of connected to us, you know. Probably 15 feet from our bedroom to their room, maybe 12 to 10. Anyway, and I started slapping Amber on the hand. I'm like, get up, the house on fire. She's like, "Don't mess with me, James, don't mess with me. It's too early. We were up late doing the videos." And I grabbed her by her cheeks and looked at her. I said, "Get the fuck up. The house is on fire. I've already got Trey outside." So Ryan and Isaiah and Karen Lee is laying in bed with her. She gets up and she grabs Ryan. Isaiah hops up and jumps on my back. He's not very old, you know, he was born in 2001, so he about 6, I guess. Hops on my back, and I just grabbed Karen Lee's leg and just grabbed her off the bed and just started dragging her through the house until I reached down and kind of picked her up and put her on my hip. I got out of the house, and then I realized, shit, my cell phone's in there. At the time, we still had a landline home phone. So I walked back into a burning house and called 911, and the dispatcher cussed me out. So we lost everything to a house fire 5 days before we got married. 5 days before we got married. She's like, "What are we going to do? You know, we've already planned the wedding. You just want to cancel it?" I'm like, "No, we've already bought the marriage license. I'm not going to let this hold us back." And so the day before our wedding, the Red Crosses stepped in and helped us get a rental house, and they helped out really quick. They put us in a hotel for a couple of days, and they had already found us a rental home, and they paid the deposit and the first month's rent. All I had to do, at the time I was working at a saltwater place where I was hauling saltwater in a big truck. So anyway, they'd got us a rental house. So the day before our wedding, we were moving into a new home. So we didn't get a honeymoon or anything like that. We had went through the tragedy of, we lost a lot of memorabilia. We lost Amber's original wedding ring and wedding band. I lost all my Denver Bronco memorabilia at the time. I had signed autographs from John Elway. I had all kinds of Denver Bronco crap. All the kids' crap. We had a bed that was given to my oldest son that had sentimental value because it was my great-grandfather's. Everything in the house was ruined except our deep freeze. I had bought a deep freeze, and that was the only thing we salvaged out of that house. Um, the deep freeze still worked, and I didn't take over it. My dad asked me if he could have it, so I gave it to my dad. And he kept it outside and would put a padlock on it and stuff, and that's where he kept his meat. But anyway, so we get married May 25th of 2008. No honeymoon, no nothing. And I was a casual drinker at the time, you know. I would drink if I was off on weekends or whatever. I was a casual drinker. And I started noticing my drinking started picking up a little bit because I was going through some depression. I was going through some anxiety, you know. I never really coped with Jesse's death like I should have, because we also had the other kids in the house, guys. We also had the other kids in the house. Um, so someone had to be a parent too. And with Amber being so down and out like she was, I had to like buck up. I like had to like really step up my game. Not that she was slacking. Not anything against her. She was slacking. It's just that I had to make sure that they were dressed for school, and because she was upset, and I was upset too. But I show my grief through a different way. I show my grief through comedy. I show my grief through playing around. So in 2008, we moved into that rental home, and I started hauling stuff for Walmart, and and I did all that kind of stuff, Walmart and saltwater. I just transferred back and forth from doing different jobs that would up my pay or whatever, and things like that. And I was making good money. I was making six figures, guys. Because I told her, I'm like, we'll never, as long as you're with me, and now that have a CDL, we won't have to worry about money anymore. Um, I'm I'm a hard worker, and she knew I was a hard worker. Sometimes I'd work two jobs. So uh, I did all the over the road stuff, and in 2015, I decided I was no longer gonna do over the road because I missed so much kids' shit. I was working for a company out of Davis, Oklahoma, and I loved working for them. I was gone 6 days, home one day, gone six, home one day, or a day and a half actually. We got home Saturday at noon, so I had the rest of the day Saturday and had all day Sunday, and then Monday I was right back at it. In 2015, I told her, I said, I want to be a local driver. So I hired on with a concrete company. When I hired on with that concrete company, I had to come through Colgate three times a week. It was beautiful through here. I had to go to Hugo, Oklahoma, down by Paris, Texas. And we picked up a load what's called fly ash. And if y'all don't know what fly ash is, when they're laying concrete on jobs, fly ash, they put it in there when it's hot out because it keeps the concrete from setting up as fast. It don't dry as fast is what it does. It keeps it from drying so quick. So I had come over here, do it three times a week, and in 2000, and then I started noticing, and my drinking was getting heavier and heavier and heavier. I'd get off the truck as soon as I get off the truck, and this isn't exaggerating, guys. This isn't beating around the bush. This is God honest telling the truth. When I tell you it was nothing for me to drink a 30-pack of beer and almost a fifth of whiskey every night of the week, 7 days a week, that's not exaggeration. You can ask my wife, you can ask my kids. I would drink 7 days a week. It didn't make a shit if it was at a baby shower, a birthday, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, you name it, I drank. But I was also what the doctor called me. He called me a progressive drinker, which means, or actually the term he used was functioning alcoholic. Meant that I was an alcoholic, but I worked and did my duties as I was told. So it didn't stop me from doing what I was doing, even though I was a functioning alcoholic. But I started noticing later on that even when I was driving the truck, I would pretty much survive off of water or Gatorade that day, and might have had a hot dog or something throughout the day. And I started noticing that before I would get off work, I was getting the DTs. I was shaking and my hand was. I'm doing this on my own. I mean, see, I can hold my hand steady. I was DTing and I was shaking real bad. And once I had that first drink, it was like it was relief. And I wouldn't admit to myself I was an alcoholic. And the number one tall tale sign of somebody having an addiction is they hide it. Amber didn't give a shit that I drank. Okay, let's put it to you this way. Amber never asked me to stop drinking. Amber never told me to stop drinking. I had decided to stop drinking on my own. One night, I'd been drinking. I'd been working this local job for a couple of years. It was May of 2017. Or not May, I'm sorry. I don't know why I said May. January of 2017. My youngest son, Ryan, who at the time, he's a senior in high school. So he was 12, or just turned 12. He had some friends down the street that were going to be moving to Edmond, Oklahoma the next week. He asked me if he could go down there and see them and say bye one last time before they moved. Of course, that was his good buddies. So, of course, I allowed him to do it. So, basically, guys, this is a story of my life. From kid all the way up. I'm sitting at the house, and I'm making one of Ryan's favorite meals. His favorite thing in the world to eat is, my wife calls it hobo stew, but it's hamburger stew. It's stew with the vegetables, corn, potatoes, green beans, celery, all that, with cornbread or crackers or whatever. And instead of using like beef tips, I'm not a steak eater, so I don't use beef tips because I'm just one that I just never have been able to have a taste for steak. So I was making it with hamburger meat, and we had a guy that lived across the street from us in the apartments, and me and him had become pretty good buddies. Well, he had lost his arms in an accident. He used to be an electrician, and they thought they had killed a power line, and they didn't, and it burned his arms, and so he didn't have both of his arms. One of them was he had a prosthetic on one so that he can like turn knobs and stuff, but he didn't have both of his arms. Dude, he was beating on my door like a freaking popo was beating on someone fixing to bust someone for drug bust. He said, I need you to get down at the end of the block. Ryan was hit by a car, but I think he's okay because he's talking to the cops. And at the time, Isaiah was on the phone with Amber. He's like, Mom, I think someone died down the street. The cops were down there. It looked like they might have got hit by the car. Well, mind you, Isaiah didn't know this was Ryan at the time. And so Amber's like, well, all you can do is just pray, son. Pray and make sure everything's okay. Well, none of us knew it was Ryan, So I get down there and I am freaking out. I just got off work and I'd had maybe a mixed drink, maybe one beer. I hadn't been off work very long, and I was cooking supper. I had just finished the cornbread and everything. And I look over when I get down there, and he looked at me. He said, hi, Dad. And he's talking to him. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, looking at his bike. I'm like, why is that bike laying there? Oh, I rode it down there to my friend's house. I'm like, you weren't supposed to be on your bike. His bike had been having problems with the brakes. The brakes weren't working on his bike, and I hadn't had time to look at them yet. So I thought he walked to these kids' house. I didn't know he rode his bike. When he was coming home, the bike didn't stop at the stop sign. And a lady was driving through, and thank goodness the speed limit there was about 25 miles an hour. She hits him. And when she hits him, he goes flying up in the air, lands down, busts her windshield out completely, or spiders it. It didn't go all the way through the car. Rolls over the back, and I guess as he rolls over, I think her back tire rolled over his ankle, because it broke his ankle in 4 different spots. She'd hit him hard enough it knocked him completely out of his effing shoes. I left my cell phone at home because I just went running down there. So I used this girl's cell phone, Amber at the time, because at the time this happened, she had decided she wanted to start working out. The kids were getting older. So she was working at a hotel just to make some extra money, you know. I mean, I was still working and everything, but she just wanted some extra money for the house to get her knickknacks and all that crap. And I'm like, okay, whatever, you know. And I called her from this girl's phone. I said, you need to get here, and you need to get here now. Ryan's been hit by a car. Click. She hung up the phone. Well, I could still hear the ambulance coming, and the ambulance was fixing to pull up. And Amber worked about 3 or 4 miles from where this happened at. She worked out by I-35, and we lived in the middle, smack down middle of town in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. She beat the ambulance there, guys. And I looked at her when she got there, and we realized that the woman that had hit him was pregnant. She was 6 months pregnant at the time. And she come up to Amber to give her a hug, and Amber looked at her straight up and said, no, I'm not ready for you yet. You got babies crying in that car. Go tend to them. And I looked at her and I said, how fast was you doing through town? She said, well, when I looked at the speedometer, it showed 110. She said, that was the last time I looked down at it. I think she wasn't really too concerned about getting pulled over because all the city cops and basically, except the sheriff's department, you know, city cops and EMS was there on scene with my son. So she didn't have to worry about being pulled over by a city cop. And she got there, and he looked at her and he was talking. And she's like, they're like, we need to get you in the ambulance with him. He said he's got a gash on his head, and we're not going to mess around. We're going to Medi-Flight him to Oklahoma City. Well, we get over to the hospital. I have somebody drive me to the hospital because I'd had one beer, maybe 2, in a mixed drink, and I try not to drink, and I damn sure don't drive once I start drinking. So a buddy that lived over about a block or so from us, come pick me up and took me to the hospital. Well, when they pulled him out of the ambulance to take him to put him on the Medi-Flight, they'd cut him out of all of his clothes except his underwear. Of course, I fucking lose it. I am on my hands and knees because I still don't know what's going on. I don't know if everything's going to be okay. He's alert and he's talking and everything. And so they put him in the helicopter. My wife's looking at my friend, and she's like, you need to get him out of here now. We don't need Ryan seeing him like this. We get up to Oklahoma City, not at Children's at first. They take him to OU Baptist. We get up there, and OU Baptist is like, he's got a broke ankle. He's got 15 staples in his head. We aren't seeing signs of concussion, so we're probably going to release him to take him back home. And I said, the fuck if you are. I said, we live almost 70 miles from Oklahoma City. What if something was to happen and we have to get him back up here? You either admit him in Children's, or I'm leaving here the hospital with him and going over their emergency department and I'm going to make them admit him at least for a night to make sure everything's all right. Come to find out, they had to admit him anyway because of the way he had gotten hit, where it broke his ankle. He had to have surgery the next day. So we're up there talking to him while he's in his room. And the whole time he's talking to us, he's bitching because he didn't get to eat his stew. And he's like, you guys promised I could eat before midnight. Because y'all got to do surgery in the morning. I can't have anything to eat or drink after midnight. So they got him like a peanut butter sandwich or whatever to tide him over. And after that happened, I'd contacted my boss while I was en route to the hospital and told him what was going on. Told him I wouldn't be there the next day. And my drinking went from bad to worse. I mean, they had put me on FMLA for a while because I knew I wasn't going to be. I just kept reliving him getting hit by that car in my head. Okay. I just kept reliving that, and I just could not get past that. And just a few days after he had gotten hit by the car, I get a phone call from my daughter's mother that she has to have a surgery procedure done. This is just days after Ryan got hit. Okay. So, she had to have a medical procedure done. I do believe it was her appendix or gallbladder. I can't remember which. So I had 2 kids that had to have surgery within a week of each other. And, so my drinking really got out of hand even under being FMLA. I took the FMLA where I wasn't getting paid. Okay. So I took the FMLA where I wasn't getting paid, so the only check we had coming in at the time was Amber's. And we had people helping pay bills and stuff. And then one night, I'd let this go on for about a month and a half, and then one night, I was slobbering but drunk. So, I mean, just slobbering drunk. I seen this infomercial on TV. If you want to get clean and sober, if you're on drugs or alcohol and want to be put in rehab, call this number. So I called the number. I'm drunker than shit. And they're like, all right. And they hooked me up to this guy named Michael. Michael's talking to me. He's like, let's get you sober, and we're going to set you up with going to rehab over in Florida. So I bust through the bedroom door. It's 2 or 3 in the morning. I look at my wife. I'm like, I'm going to get sober. Because I talked to her about getting sober. I had discussed it with her, you know. I discussed it with her about getting sober and stuff. And then people were explaining to her that, you know, if I wanted to do the rehab or go to a detox center first, not to try to sober me up herself so I didn't start having seizures or start having some serious health problems. So anyway, she's like, you're not going to Florida. We'll find a rehab for you around here. So I go to so March 14th, on the way to the detox center, they had encouraged my wife to let me drink on the way to this detox center because they wanted me to come in as my normal self. I went into the detox center March 14th of 2017. Did my 8 days of detox. From there, I went to rehab. Everybody in my family, excluding my wife and kids, because mind you, my wife wasn't really much of a drinker anyway. And when she did drink, she drank tequila or she'd drink wine. And that's 2 liquors that Pop here didn't like at all, that was perfectly fine and safe in my house, was I did not like the taste of tea. I did not like tequila, and I did not like wine. I couldn't stand the taste of either one. So that was two liquors in my home that was safe. So, and then once I got out, everyone was like, "Oh, he won't stay sober longer than just a few weeks, few months. He's talked about getting sober before." And when I put my mind to something, guys, I stick with it pretty much. I mean, I've tried to quit smoking before, and I've usually picked it back up. But anyway, so I get home and I get sober. I ain't gonna bullshit you. The first 90 days was hard. The first 90 days was hard. If I went into a store and it sold beer, I would have an immediate panic attack. Um, but, and then in the process of all this, we go to a deal every year in my hometown called the Noodling Festival, where everyone around there drinks. All my buddies drink. All my friends drank. You know, I was going to be around drinking. And that was my first real test because I'd only been sober about 3 months. And in the process of all this, my grandmother's dying. And everyone thought for sure after my grandmother died, since I'd only been sober just a few months, I'd go back to being, to go back to drinking. I got the phone call while I was at the Noodling Festival that my grandmother had passed away. I'd already went up to the hospital and said my goodbyes a couple days before that, because she was basically in a coma after that, and so I didn't like rush at the Noodling Festival. I'd sent Amber a text message. She was working the graveyard shift at her job. I still, at that time, had relinquished my duties at my job of being a truck driver because of my alcoholism, and I could tell something else was wrong. From the time I was young, growing up into my 20s, everyone noticed that I walked with kind of a hunch. Everyone noticed it. We just never really thought nothing of it, but they thought maybe it might have been due to an injury I had when I was in my early 20s because I fell off of an oil rig when I was 20 or 21. So, and it caught, and I landed on my neck. So, anyway, I knew that there was more to me being I needed, and then while I was in rehab, I also found out I was schizophrenic and bipolar both. So not only, and then I found out from the psychiatrist there that what was going on was by me drinking all them years, I was self-medicating because I had had these other issues. I had at the time we didn't know I had the autoimmune disease. I was hiding the schizophrenia and bipolarism through alcohol. We lived in that house that I gave up drinking. We lived in that house another few months, and then I told my wife, I'm like, my wife had landed a really good job working for T-Mobile over about 30 miles east of us. I don't know why my cigarette keeps going out, guys. My wife landed a really good job about 30 miles east of us in a town called Ada. So we uprooted, and for the first time, pretty much moved away, completely away from family. We didn't have any family living in Ada. We didn't know nobody in Ada. Ada's a pretty good sized town. It's a college town. It has about 16 or 17,000 people. But we lived on the outskirts of Ada, so we lived out in the country, so we didn't live in directly downtown. Matter of fact, my kids didn't even go to Ada school. They went to a school called Banos. And they were a school small enough they didn't even have a football team. All they had was softball, basketball, and baseball. Um, anyway, so while she's doing all this, and then one of our kids had gotten into some trouble. I had to get him out of my hometown because he was hanging out with a bad crowd. My hometown had not really become a hometown anymore. It had changed dramatically. If you guys ever get a chance, look up Garvin County, Oklahoma, and it'll tell you right there on. It's even been posted on Oklahoma's news channels. It's the number one methamphetamine county in the state of Oklahoma. It's the number one heroin use, number one meth use. Our town had 6,000 people. We had 5 fucking liquor stores, okay? We had 5 liquor stores in a town with 6,000 people of my hometown. And, anyway, so we got out of there and got Isaiah all straightened out and straightened up. Couldn't ask for a better kid. He went through the program and everything and got out of all of his trouble. And in February of 2020, where we were living at, we found out that the landowner where we were living at was going to sell the property. And they still hadn't talked to me about whether or not we were going to still be able to stay there or not. So I told my wife, I'm like, let's move over to Colgate. I drove through there numerous times when I was hauling for Jacobson to go get fly ash. And it's like basically the gateway of the Choctaw Nation. And it's her tribal area. Because she lived in the Chickasaw Nation area, and the Chickasaw Nation didn't help her much because she wasn't their tribe. She was Choctaw. So we got over here and we moved over here to Colgate in 2020. That was February 24th of 2020 when we moved in over here. About a week, or we lived here about 2 weeks, and they still hadn't got my son transcripts from Vanos schools yet, so he had to miss a little bit of school when we first moved here. He got to go to school here 5 days before they shut the whole world down due to COVID. And because in 2018, Amber had a blood clot. She had hurt her leg, and the hospital had put her, instead of telling her trying to walk on it a little bit, had put her strictly into a wheelchair. And so she wasn't getting enough blood flow through her leg. So in 2018, we were sitting at the house one night, and Ryan come in the room. He said, Dad, Mom needs you in the living room. Something's wrong. She needs an ambulance. I'm thinking she's just hurting, because of the leg thing. And we found out later that night what had happened and why she was feeling like she was, because she was having real bad chest pains, and she was having real bad congestion in the chest. When EMS got there, they weren't going to be able to bring, the way our porch was shaped, they weren't able to bring the stretcher in. So she was still not able to use that foot a whole lot, so she hopped to the front door so she can load up onto that gurney. When we got to the hospital, kind of find out she had a lemon-sized blood clot they had went through her heart into her lung. And the doctor was trying to figure out how in the fuck she survived it. Because he said normally you don't survive something like that. So that was in 2018. So she got put on blood thinners and all that and everything. And then later on, she went back to working at her job. And when COVID shut down, she was still, at first, she was still driving back and forth from here to her job. And then they switched it to where she was working. They got her a computer set up and she was using the internet. If you guys have problems with your cell phones, she worked for T-Mobile. She was one of those people you talk to on T-Mobile. You would either call in and pay the bill, or she would help you fix your line or whatever. That's what Amber did. Okay, she didn't work in a store. She was a telemarketer without being a telemarketer. She took inbound calls. She wasn't an outbound call person at all. Damn cigarette went out again. Anyway, she was an inbound person. Well, Icor had decided that they were going to stop doing a bunch of the T-Mobile stuff, and some of this stuff was going to be, they weren't just going to do strictly stuff for T-Mobile. They were going to do stuff with like 1-800-Flowers, and they were going to do something with a gas company. Well, Amber was so good at her job, and she'd already been there damn near, at that time, I think it was already 4 years almost. Right at 4 years, or pretty close to 4 years. Her bosses, because of her statute at work, when they were handpicking these people to stay with T-Mobile, Amber was like phone call number 2 on the list to keep working for T-Mobile. But she was no longer going to be taking citizens calls. She was going to be taking corporate calls for like major companies, celebrities, military, schools, things like that. So she no longer had a person physically in charge of her that was by her. Her manager lived in North Carolina, and she was here in Oklahoma. So if there was an issue, she would have to put the customer on hold and would have to dial another number on her computer to get a hold of her manager. Well, she was working one morning. It was either right after Easter or pretty close to Easter that year of 2021. I woke up feeling weird. I woke up with some tightness in my chest and some tightness in my arm. And I told her, I said, I think I'm having a heart attack. I need to go to the hospital. She finished her call with her customer. She got a hold of her manager, let her manager know that something was wrong with me and she needed, and for me to ask for help back then, guys, when I tell you it was like slim to none, was slim to fucking none. At that time, I didn't even have a primary doctor. I was one of these kind of guys, if something was wrong with me, I would just go to the hospital if I felt something was wrong with me, you know. If I'd hurt myself or something like that. I didn't have a primary, okay? Well, while I'm at the hospital, all the tests come back fine. I wasn't having a heart attack. They think maybe it was just an anxiety attack. And anxiety attacks can mimic heart attacks, okay? I found out that out later. Well, they're like, well, you need to start seeing a primary. So I'm like, okay. So I start seeing a primary doctor here in Colgate, and he was just down the road from us. And he gets down there, he listens to my heart and everything. He said, I'm not concerned about your heart. What I'm concerned about is the way you walk. He's like, have you recently fell? Or have you hurt your neck? Have you fallen off of something? Were you in a car accident? So no, I've been walking hunched over like this since I was in my late teens, early 20s. And he said, I want to find out what's going on with that. That's my number one priority with you right now, is finding out what's going on with that. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I'm thinking, a few days later, I'm going to get a phone call and say, hey, James, we're going to, uh, we're going to do surgery on you. It's going to fix your neck. No, he calls me. He says, I need you to come up here to my office. I need to have a talk with you. I'm like, okay. So we scheduled an appointment for me to come in the office. And he told me, he said, at that time they had already retired me from trucking. Um, I couldn't no longer, because of my mental health, and it was struggling for me to get around, because I could tell there was something going on health wise with my body. I could no longer function, so my job retired me in 2017, at the age of 40. And I'd already had enough work hours in that I had full benefits. If you know, and um, so anyway, he says you have a disease called ankylosing spondylitis, because the radiologist called him and they said, this man physically walked into your facility and wasn't wheelchaired in. It wasn't taken in by EMS or anything. And Dr. Haney said, yes, sir. He physically walked into my facility. He said, well, he has ankylosing spondylitis, and it's already spread so far that it's already made him fuse from the neck all the way to the tailbone. And I know that some of you guys that have surgeries done on your back and stuff, some of y'all like have these fusions done. Basically, my shit did this without any help. Basically, it took my from my neck to my tailbone, and it compressed it like super glue or gorilla glue, and it can't be undone. You can't physically have it surgically repaired. And because we never caught it when I was growing up, or in my 20s, and everyone kept asking me, well, how did you pass physicals? Well, number one, I live in Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, for you to pass physical as a truck driver, um, if you piss clean in a cup, that's all they want. I mean, they didn't really require much. I mean, if you piss clean, nothing else was ever said. And so that's how I kept getting by with it. Is I didn't ever have like any like um, X-rays done to my back or anything like that, or to see all this. And he said, I'm going to have my office set you up with what's called a rheumatologist. A rheumatologist is a person that helps people with lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, MS, things like that. If any of y'all suffer from any of these diseases, you know what I'm talking about. So I said, what's this mean? He said, it means you can never work again, because you're already in such bad shape. It's already spread that far. He said it's also the culprit of why you were having the problems with your mouth. I was having really, really bad problems with my front teeth. My front teeth had blackened like I was some kind of really bad drug addict, and I'd never used drugs in my life. Um, it affects your whole body. So um, he said, I want you to try to live as much normal of a life as possible, and don't let this try to get you down too much. Try to, you know, still do some of the daily things you do, doing your things around the house or whatever. And he said, but you're at the late stages of this already. I'm gonna tell you right now, you're like at the late stages of this. So I get set up with the rheumatologist, and July of that year, I got to see my first rheumatologist appointment, and she looked at me and straight up said, "You're so far progressed in this. Alls I can do for you is make you comfortable." I'm like, okay. She's like, I'm going to put you on a biologic that's going to possibly help with the pain a little bit. Um, it and the biologic is called Humira. Um, it's an injection you do either in your stomach or your thigh every 2 weeks. Um, she said, and I want you to know within the next 5 years, you are going to be 100% wheelchair bound. So, right after we had found out I had the ankylosing spondylitis, we had found out we were going to be grandparents. And we might have found out right before I found out I had this disease. Um, we found out we were going to be grandparents. And Amber had already had her name picked out as being a grandmother. She was going to be called Denny. My original plan was being a grandfather because I used to be a truck driver and I drove big rigs. I was going to be called Big Daddy. That was going to be my grandpa name, was Big Daddy. And when I found out that they were going to, when my son and them were going to have a little girl, I'd started talking to Amber, and I'm like, look, I know I talked about being called Big Daddy, but I'm thinking about changing my grandfather name up because, you know, I didn't want, you know, my granddaughter's 3 now. I didn't want to be holding hands with my 3-year-old granddaughter in a grocery store and her turn up to me and look at me and say, hey, Big Daddy, can I have this? And someone look at me like I'm some kind of fucking weirdo or something, you know, because this little girl just called me Big Daddy. So, one of our sons, Isaiah, he doesn't call me Dad. He calls me Pops, and he has since he was a teenager. Um, Once in a great while he'll call me Dad, but 90% of the time he'll call me Pops. Um, so I told Amber, I'm like, well, Isaiah already calls me Pops. Let's just go with the name Pop Pop. And she's like, okay, that's cool, you know, and everything. We'll go with Ninny and Pop Pop. And so we had shirts made and all that stuff for the baby shower and everything. And so when Cambry was born in October of that year, we were still kind of into the COVID thing. It was still 2020 basically. So they still hadn't released everyone to like go back to normal life. We were just a few when she was born. We were just like a few weeks away from us fixing to vote for the next president. So we basically, for the first couple of weeks, just seen her in pictures, and we didn't physically get to meet her in person until around Christmas. And because she was still so young, you know, we wore masks and stuff, and I'm not against that or anything. And and I had her cooing in my arms, and she was, you know, and I was talking to her, and I'm like, Pop Pop loves you. And um anyway, So we went with Nanny and Pop Pop, and my daughter was a senior in high school, or she might have been a junior still. My daughter Karen Lee, when we moved over to the 8 areas, she stopped going to public school and went into doing homeschooling from home. And I was her teacher, basically. I did everything, or didn't do everything for her, but I would help her with her homework and all that, because I was a stay-at-home dad. Um, and, when I first went down and everything, everyone, the kids were kind of concerned. They're like, are we going to be homeless? Because they got used to dad making 6 figures, guys. It wasn't nothing for us to go to a restaurant and blow $200 to eat out. Wasn't nothing for us to blow $1,000 a weekend going out and farting around. I'm like, no, we're not going to be homeless and all that. Mom's got a job. We're just not going to be able to live the luxury life we were living, which was a good thing, because what I did with my money was, we didn't have car payments. We didn't owe anybody anything. I would buy these things outright. So the only thing we had to make sure was covered was our, sorry guys, I got a real bad itch on my nose for some reason. Anyway, so, we went from living a really, really, really expensive lifestyle, that we had to lower our standards a little bit. And then I found out I had that ankylosing spondylitis. And then later that year, it was, just a few days before Christmas. We had some family down. And I was putting the ham in the oven. And my left side was going numb for some reason. At first I thought, okay, well, maybe it's just part of this ankylosing spondylitis thing, because when I go to bed at night, when I wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I have cramps in my legs. There was a time I was driving and I had a cramp come up in my leg, and my leg froze up and I couldn't move my leg off the gas pedal. I had to pick my leg up and put it on the brake. Okay. So that's why my wife and kids don't let me drive very far, because I go into these cramps, and when it goes into these cramps, or my legs seize up to where I can't lift them up, or they fall asleep really easy, my body falls asleep at night. My arms, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I can wake up in the middle of the night, my hands feel like somebody's laid weights on them, and they're real tingly and numb, and they just fell asleep while I was asleep. I didn't think nothing about it at first. So they take me over to the local hospital. The local hospital transfers me to OU Medical by ambulance. Because they said, we don't know if it's a stroke or not. We need you to get to a bigger hospital where they can determine it. Well, they did a bunch of CT scans on me. They had me all doped up on Benadryl and some other crap, and I was kind of in and out of it. Kind of find out, I had my teeth removed, my front top teeth removed, because I was having such bad headaches, and I was eating Orajel and putting Orajel on my gums, and I was using it like it was candy. So I had my front teeth removed earlier that year before they'd start me on biologics. The dentist wanted to have that done before I started. Well, come to find out, while I'm up at the hospital, it wasn't a stroke. It's called hemiplegic migraines, without actually having the headache, which mimics a stroke, which makes one side of your body go completely numb, and I could feel it. I was touching, but I couldn't feel it. I could pinch and it wouldn't hurt. I could pinch the left side of my body and it wouldn't hurt. So they diagnosed me with hemiplegic migraines. And then I had switched primary doctors later on, because we just started having some issues with the primary here. He wasn't referring me out to some of the people I needed referred out to. They had been doing neck injections on me, and my son loves it when they do neck injections on me and my back injections and stuff. I do that. I have that done a couple times a year because for about 2 weeks, I can turn my head side to side. Right now, I'm having to turn my body. I can turn my head. I can see when I drink a soda pop. That's why a lot of times, if you guys ever see me, if Ron, and I don't know if Ron noticed it while we were there, I always drink everything out of a straw or a bottle because I could tilt the bottle up. But a can, you really can't tilt up. You got to tilt your head back, and I couldn't tilt my head back. So to drink out of a soda can, I have to like take it and kind of splash it in there, because I can't tilt my head, because I'm already fused. But anyway, I started seeing a different primary, because this other primary wasn't referring me out to people I needed referred out to, because I was having some problems with my hips and stuff. And the orthopedic doctor looked at me. He said, "Look, we need to do surgery on your right hip now." He's like, "You have the hips of like an 80-year-old person." He says, "Probably due to this autoimmune disease eating away at your shit." And I had my surgery done June that year, and I had just got done with physical therapy. And after physical therapy, I was on some pain medication, so I just kind of really wasn't paying attention. And I'm right-handed anyway. I'm very, very right dominant. So when we were up until that day, any other time I was in physical therapy, we were having EMS come over because my wheelchair ramp wasn't built yet. We had EMS come over and help lift assist to get me up on the front porch, because once I got up on the front porch, I could use my walker to get back in the house. Well, I just told my wife, I'm like, "Don't call EMS. You and your dad can help me up the front steps." Well, I was talking to her dad, and I wasn't waiting on him to grab a hold of my shoulder to help me up. And I took a right step up on the first step, and as soon as I did, I went straight, my knee went straight down, and it went down enough for it to hit the step, and he popped me straight back up. Well, this was like within 2 weeks of me having this hip replacement. Well, you know how if you're sitting somewhere and you can lift your feet straight out and straight down, straight out, straight down. I couldn't do that with my right leg at all after that had happened. So the doctor thought I tore my patella. He had went in and it tore a bunch of cartilage and it tore a bunch of shit in my knee. So I had my hip replaced in June of that year. I had my knee replaced in August of that year. So at the time we were going to hold off on doing my left hip till everything was all back kosher and to normal. And then I had told my new primary, I'm like, "Look, I'm having really bad sleeping problems." Y'all hang on just a second. I'm gonna pause y'all. Sorry guys, I had an important phone call. So anyway, I found out I had the hemiplegic migraines, and it mimics the stroke. The reason why they and then they did the hemiplegic migraine, and I had a few little episodes after that. Since 2022, I haven't really had an episode of the numbness or anything. Once in a while I get a little numb, but I don't like freak out about it like I did at first because I know what it is. But anyway, but I don't get the headaches with it. Before they yanked my teeth, I used to get headaches all the time. Nowadays, very, 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 very rare do I ever get a headache. Um, I mean, once in a while, I'll have a little bit of a headache, and then I've also switched to where I don't drink regular Dr. Pepper. Um, the doctor had asked me to cut out on the regular Dr. Pepper and go to the Dr. Pepper Zero sugar, where I still get a little bit of caffeine because I was having some trouble sleeping. So he thought that me drinking that much caffeine might have been an issue because I drank Dr. Pepper a lot, and it's like the highest potent percentage of caffeine in soda pop that there is, just in case y'all didn't know that. Um, so it does give me my little bit of a caffeine fix, and it's zero sugar. So basically, the only time I have any kind of sugar is I'm a Twix fanatic. Okay, Twix fanatic. I love my Girl Scout cookies. I love anything with peanut butter in it. Top deal. So anyway, so fast forwarding just a little bit further. Um, this was December of 2022. I'd seen my doctor, because once you have something like that done, you got to be seen by your physician within 72 hours after a situation like that. Amber explained to him that I was having trouble sleeping, and sometimes she stays awake and watches me, and she hears me kind of gasping for air. Well, having this disease I got, this ankylosing spondylitis, they have to do scans on me every 6 months anyway, because my bones are compressing to my body, so they got to make sure that my chest is not getting in any danger where it's going to compress into my lungs or into my heart. So they do scans on me every 6 months to make sure that there's no compression there. And she had talked to the doctor, and he set me up with a neurologist out of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and he is fantastic. I mean, he goes by the name of Dr. Ebosh. And he did some tests, and he at first they thought I might have had sleep apnea. Well, kind of find out. See, I didn't have to go to their shop and do a sleep study. They sent this little thing home with me. It looked like a pulse oximeter. And you just stick it on your finger, and you wrap this little Velcro around it, and you Bluetooth it to your phone, and you do that 3 straight nights, and they read all the data, and then they call you back in like 11 days later so that they can read the results to you. Come to find out I didn't have sleep apnea, that I have COPD and asthma. So now then there had to be a referral sent out to a pulmonary doctor for COPD and asthma. He did his test on me. I couldn't eat or drink anything after midnight. The next day I did a test, and when they ran the test on me, he said I wasn't at the level where I needed to be on oxygen just yet. He said I was close, but I wasn't there yet. And he said, for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on Advair, where you're going to take a puff of it in the morning and rinse your mouth out, and a puff of it at night and rinse your mouth out. And I'm also going to put you on Spiriva, where you take 2 puffs every day. It looks like an ibuterol inhaler. The only thing is you flip the lid up on it. Hang on a second. I'll show you what it looks like. Let me pause it. Anyway, so this is one of the inhalers I do. I just flip the lid up. I click this over. I take a puff. I click it again, and I take another puff. I do that one time a day. And on this here, this is my Advair. I basically flip the deal, and I click this little blue thing right here. I suck in, I hold it in 5 seconds and suck out, and then blow out, and then I go straight to the kitchen, and I turn the water on, and I take our little hose that you can hose things off in the kitchen sink, and I squirt it in my mouth and rinse it out real good. And then I do that again at night before I go to bed. And then I also have an albuterol inhaler that I can take. It's a rescue inhaler, just in case throughout the day I'm feeling, where this sometimes these I start wheezing a little bit, and it's because I'm still smoking. I mean, he had asked me to quit smoking, and it's hard for me to quit smoking. And the reason why it's hard for me to quit smoking is because I got all this stuff going on with me, and I don't smoke as much at home. Y'all seen me smoke a couple cigarettes during this video, but I promise you, I'm like pausing these videos before I like smoke. So it's not like I'm chain smoking or anything. But when I get real nervous, I do smoke a lot. And when I'm in a casino, I smoke quite a bit. I guess it's because of the fact that I get nervous or whatever. I don't know. And then, so he set me up with the pulmonary doctor. And then when he started giving me these inhalers, my levels actually went up some. Which he said was incredible. So the medication he's giving me was working. Okay, because he was at fear that I was going to come back in and I was going to have to be put on a oxygen tank, which means I would probably have to quit smoking. And he asked me, and I was honest with him. He said, "What would it take for me to get you to completely stop smoking?" I said, "You would probably literally have to close every casino in the state of Oklahoma down in order to get me to stop smoking tobacco." Because when I would go to the casinos, I like to play. He said, "Well, maybe you need to stay out of the casinos." Well, that's not happening. And right before I seen this neurologist, my youngest daughter was staying with us, and she was pregnant. Um, and so right before I saw the neurologist, or not the neurologist, I'd already seen the neurologist, and I'd already got the diagnosis. I was just waiting on the referral to get sent to the pulmonary doctor. I finally got to see the pulmonary doctor a few months later. When you see specialists, when you get your referral for that, it don't happen immediately. You wait months. When I got diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis, it took until that following July to finally see a rheumatologist. When I got diagnosed with having the COPD, it took literally months to get put with a pulmonary doctor. So what this was my daughter had moved back out of our house and moved back up to Iowa with her husband, before she gave birth to the baby. She was originally going to have the baby here in Oklahoma, but they had decided to go back to where he lived to have the baby. So Amari was born March 5th of 2022. So March 13th of 2022, we were at Choctaw Casino in Durant. And me and my wife love to play slots. You know, we're not high rollers. Y'all seen us bet 50 cents. Y'all seen us bet 18 cents on Mighty Cash. You see me do the low bonus challenge, man versus slots or whatever. You see me do all that. Um, the biggest bets we usually see us do is you might see us do a $5 bet once in a great while. You might see us do a $3 bet once in a great while. But anyway, so I told my wife, I said, hey, you know, YouTube is really out there pushing out slot channels right now. Let's start doing a slot channel. And then he's like, okay, well, what are we going to name it? So we came up with the name Nenny and Pop Pop Slots. And then it got to where Nenny was involved with doing stuff with the grandbabies, and I started noticing I was going places, and I'd got the rights to film at my local. So we were going places, or I was going places, and I was doing a lot of the stuff by myself, or I was riding with one of my kids, and they were there with me. If I went to Durant, Amber doesn't let me go to Durant by myself. She does let me go to Durant by myself if she's set to meet up with me later on. Because they can load the wheelchair with me, and I can unload it. My electric wheelchair, I can unload it by myself because I can roll it down the ramp by myself. But I can't get it up the ramp by myself. My body just doesn't allow me of that. Number one, I'm a fall hazard now. So we went from Nenny and Pop Pop Slots, and then and then I started noticing that, hey, she's not really participating in this as much because she's so involved with the grandbabies. And so I talked to her, and I'm like, let's switch it to Pop Pop and Nenny Slots. She's like, okay. And still, then we were still just doing I was still doing strictly just slots, you know. And then later on, I told her, I said, I got so much going on with me right now, and I can't always get to a casino. And you're not really in the picture a whole lot anymore. And that way I can call like games or wrestling or sporting events here at home. Let's change the name to Pop Pop's Gaming. That way we're not only just a slot channel, I can also call games. I can do stuff from the comfort of my home. We can do every life day events. We can do, I can stream like Thanksgiving, or if we're having a game night here at the house or whatever. Or y'all see me do some stuff where I like upload stuff from my Xbox, WWE or NFL, you know, video games, stuff like that. And that way, when I can't get to the casino to film, I have something to be able to show you guys. And she was okay with it. She's like, that's a good idea. I said, but you're still going to be part of the channel. It's just that you're going to be more behind the scenes. And she was like, all right, no big deal. You know, that you're the one that puts in all the footwork on this. You deserve this. And then I had started having some conversations with my doctor last year. After they did my first hip surgery, I started noticing I was losing a lot of weight. By the way, guys, Pop Pop's Gaming wrist bracelet. If y'all want one, send me an email, denver74820@gmail.com. I'll mail you some. Or if you see me in a casino, hit me up. I'll have some on me. Anyway, so I started talking to the doctor. I said, I'm losing a lot of weight. I said, when I had my first hip surgery, I was at almost 160 pounds. Now I weigh like almost 130 pounds. I said, something's wrong. I said, I think it has something to do with my liver. And I said, I'm not a doctor or anything. I said, but I think something's going on with my liver. And I said, and the reason why I say that is because I'm losing so much weight. And why I thought that way is because I'm on Humira. With me being on Humira, with Humira, you're actually supposed to gain some weight. You're not supposed to lose it. And so it was a struggle for him to get me into a liver specialist, guys. I mean, it took us like 6 months to get me in with a liver specialist. Hang on just a second. Reach over and grab something. So it took me forever to get with a liver specialist. And then kind of find out they sent me to the wrong department at first. They had sent me to a kidney doctor instead of a liver doctor. And so we had to get all that straightened out to where I got sent to the liver doctor instead of the kidney doctor. And then finally they got all that crap straightened out. And then what's supposed to happen when you quit drinking is your liver is an organ that it heals itself. If some of y'all don't know this. But every time they were drawing blood, my liver enzymes were still showing high. And I physically hadn't had a drink in over 6 years. And so I told him, I said, that's what makes me think something's going on with my liver, is because it's not allowing it's not allowing that liver to heal like it's supposed to. He's like, yeah, you have a point, let's see what's going on or whatever. So anyway, we got set up with the liver doctor, and I talked to her and everything. And before that, last May, I had a colonoscopy done, and they had to stretch my esophagus because I was having problems swallowing. Well, the colonoscopy come out all right. Nothing was wrong with the colonoscopy. It showed that I didn't have cancer in my colon or anything like that. She said, but there is something, a spot on there's something over in your liver area that I want to do a CT scan on. And she said, I'm doing it because I think it might be cirrhosis. And so when they scanned me in May of last year, I finally got seen by the liver specialist in January of this year. And what had happened was, because I had that autoimmune disease and my body's already fighting so much shit, it didn't allow that liver to heal itself like it's supposed to, because the autoimmune disease was denying it of that. So therefore, I had to I have a chart of what my liver looks like. Your liver is supposed to start healing itself back to normal once you stop drinking. About that much of my liver is still functioning, guys. About that much of my liver. The doctor told Amber that if I start showing jaundicey colors, or if I start having pain in my right stomach area, that it's a tell sign that my liver's getting worse and I need to be taken to Oklahoma City immediately. And so what they've had to do on my medication, with doing that, she doesn't allow me to take um like uh naproxen or ibuprofen or Advil or anything like that, because that can cause problems to start going on with your kidneys. And since I've already got something going on with my liver, she don't want me to have something going on with my kidneys too. Um, so if I do start getting to where I'm like having a little bit of a headache or something like that, I know that Tylenol, if you take too many Tylenol, it can kill your liver. But she told me if I'm hurting or whatever, that is safe enough for me to take a Tylenol. But most people, when they take two Tylenol to cure a headache or a body ache or something, I can't take two of them. I can take one, and like 2 to 3 hours later, I can take the second pill. I can't take them together um, because of the liver deal. So I've had to go up on my meds because I am prescribed Valium. Um, I take a 5 milligram Valium in the morning, and I was taking a 5 milligram Valium at night because it also reacts as a muscle relaxer, along with it helping with my anxiety and depression. So now I'm on 15 milligrams of Valium a day instead of 10. Um, and he said he had to move me up. He said and the reason why he had to move me up is because that liver isn't functioning like it's supposed to, and everything you digest like that pill form or whatever goes through your liver first. Like if you take a gummy, if you take a THC gummy, it's different than smoking weed. If you take a THC gummy, it goes through your liver and then it affects you, and it takes it longer for you to get out of your system, type deal. So uh, therefore, so I can't take anything, um, any kind of medications I take. I gotta basically up. He said sooner or later he's gonna have to up me from that, which maybe later on we're gonna start talking about maybe switching me to Ativan, because a 1 milligram Ativan acts as a 5 milligram Valium, and they gave me Ativan, and it's also the only Ativan they use for people that's got Alzheimer's too. It's an antidepressant that it's the only antidepressant that not only can they give it to you in pill form, but they can also give it to you through IV. It's the only antipsychotic that does that. And not that when I was up at the hospital with the hemiplegic migraines, they gave me they ran the Ativan through my IV along with Benadryl, and it laid me on my fucking ass. I mean, it fucked me up. Excuse my language, but it messed me up royally. Um, so maybe down the road, so I don't start getting immune to the Valium, I might switch to like either Ativan or maybe a Xanax or something along the lines of that. And I've got people that tells me, take herbal tea or blah 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 whatever. No, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do what my doctor says. Um, I'm not looking to find doctors on Facebook and YouTube that says you need to do this versus that. Um, and then March 14th of this year, I celebrated being 7 years sober. And by being 7 years sober is a huge accomplishment. And I do see the liver specialist on April the 8th. And I'm going to ask her straight up, because they did the scan on me. I've done all kinds of research, guys. I've done research. I've looked at WebMD. I've looked it up on Google. I've got family members that are nurses. Once you're diagnosed with stage 4 cirrhosis, they normally give you between 12 and 24 months to live, possibly 36 months if you're lucky. So since they scammed me last year in May and they're doing another scan on me in May, if nothing has changed, I may have a little bit longer to go on this great earth. But I also am not gonna. I'm also a big boy, and I don't like shit given to me in a childish manner to where I'm not told things. I cannot, if I don't have very long to go, I told my wife straight up. I said, if I'm told I was basically have months, maybe weeks, maybe, whatever, I might start having a few beers every now and then. What else could go wrong? You know, I mean, that was my drug of choice when I was, some people's drug of choice is other things. That was my drug of choice. And I've done this 420 stuff, and every now and then I do 420. I have a medical marijuana card, um, because it does relax me, but it does make me have a little bit of a panic attack every once in a while, and I don't like things to give me a panic attack, so I don't do it all as often as I used to. Um, but once that panic attack leaves, yeah, I feel great, man. I feel like I'm floating. My kids love it. They tell me I act like Cheech and Chong, um, when I'm on it because I'm like really laid back. And the very first time I ever did 420, it was funny because my wife made meatloaf that night, and I ate damn near half the pan of meatloaf when I smoked. So what I did was I taught myself, if I'm gonna smoke 420 or do 420, I'm gonna eat before I do it so it doesn't bring on hunger. And another thing that will also intensify something like that, if you are a marijuana smoker, if some of you don't know this, if you are a marijuana smoker, if you eat anything with peanut butter in it, it'll intensify the high. Just so you know. Um, there for a while, I was using CBD, but now that I'm on Valium, I can't use CBD anymore because it like blocks what the Valium does for you out of your system if you use CBD. So I don't use CBD anymore. I was using CBD before I was put on the Valium because it was helping with the anxiety and stuff. And now that I'm on Valium, I don't use CBD anymore. So, but anyway, so April 8th of this year, I see the uh, liver specialist. I've got a lot of things wrong with me, guys, since I went from being not having a primary to now I have a primary and I have 9 specialists. Um, I know that I'm dying. My wife and kids know that I'm dying. Um, we don't know how long I got. I could have months. I could have a couple of years. We don't know. When she did the scans, when I saw her in January, she did a ultrasound on my liver and stuff. And from the ultrasound and the CT scan that they did back in May of last year, there wasn't no showings of any progression. But now I'm starting to feel some signs of progression, since January. Um, I'm starting to get a little bit of the foggy headedness every now and then that I was told was going to happen. Sometimes I misspell things when I write it out, where if I spell the word like here, like I hear you loud and clear, I spell it HERE instead of HEAR. Um, I am starting to get where I'm forgetting a few things, not major issues, where it's not alarming at the moment, but I'm not trying to depress anyone. And then Amber and me have a deal that even if I was to die tomorrow, she's still going to show. That's why I started showing her how to go live and stuff and do things on YouTube. She's going to keep the channel going. It's still going to be Pop Pops Gaming. It'll just be Nini running it. And it'll be either her or my boys running it. I've also been teaching them how to run the channel if it comes to where I can't do it. And they're doing a benefit for me on April the 6th at a local bar here in town, which I don't drink. We're doing it there because my buddy that's helping put this on, number one, I want to shout out my wife, Amber, aka Nini, and my buddy, Ryan, that's been a really good friend of mine and is one of the reasons one of my kids is named after him. We've been buddies for well over 20 plus years. We met when I started working at the casino in 2003. And actually, he just left out today. He came up here so that we could sing some karaoke over this week over at the local club. We're doing it there because they're doing a pool tournament. He's the president of the pool league from our home area. Hang on, let me reach down and grab something, guys. I dropped something on the floor. He's the president of the pool league of our home area. So, and this is something that he wanted to do for me. And they kept it a secret from me. And we got permission to go live that day, April 6th, from J&J Sports Bar. And only if people want to be on camera will they be on camera. We're going to go live once Ryan starts his speech. Once he starts his speech, we're going to go live. And then I'm going to talk a little bit. And I'm going to hang around there a little bit while they do the pool tournament and stuff. And then I'm going to hang around there for a little while. And then around 6 or so, I'm going to come back home. That's the weekend of WrestleMania. And if any of you guys know me, I'm a huge wrestling fanatic. So I'm going to come home and watch WrestleMania. But I'm going to be up there and part of this. I was kind of mad at them both for doing this because they know I don't like to be in the limelight like this. And those of y'all that follow me on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, or whatever social media platform I use, y'all make sure if y'all can't show up, if you want to help donate. Look, I'm not this person that a few years ago that was using the funding that people were getting. We didn't start a GoFundMe thing. We didn't start a GoFundMe thing because last year Amber started a GoFundMe thing, and I actually physically had somebody accuse me of using the GoFundMe to support my gambling habit, and that ain't the fucking case. Let me tell you right now, when I get my monthly retirement checks, I use a little bit of money out of it, or when Amber gets paid from her paychecks, we use a little bit of money out of it to gamble with. Nothing from this benefit. Now, if y'all send it to me like a super chat or whatever, yeah, I'll use it to gamble with. But if it's to help fund for my appointments, because we have to travel so much and she has to miss so much work, and I travel long distances to see my specialists and stuff, guys. If y'all want to donate to the channel, and if you put on there, it's donation for the help of medical expenses. It's a Cash App thing. It's money sign live, laugh, love, Nini. Money sign live, laugh, love, Nini. And On the live, the L is capital. The love, the L is capital. The laugh, the L is capital. Ninny, the N is capital. Everything else is lowercase. And of course, it's got the money sign. So it's Cash App, live, laugh, love, Ninny. All the L's are capital and the N is capital. Everything else is lowercase. And it'll show a picture of my wife Amber. So it'll direct you to the right person. And here lately I've been putting it on my lives. If you want to help support the channel, I've been putting it on my lives. But if you want to help donate to get me back and forth to doctors, put in the quotations to help out with that. I'm not going to use it to gamble with if that's not what it's meant for. If you put in there, hey, it's a super chat, yeah, I'll gamble it. I'll if it's a $5 or $10 super chat, yeah, I'll gamble it. But if it's not, if it's to help medical wise, I'm not slotty by nature. I'm not some of these other channels that's pulled this shit. That's what it's for. That is what it's for. That's what this benefits for too, is to help out with medical expenses, because it gets expensive running back and forth to these doctors. Sometimes I see 2 or 3 a month. Sometimes I go a few months without happening to see one at all. But one doctor a month I do see monthly is my primary. There's no option in that. I see him once a month because I have to physically see him for him to be able to prescribe me the Valium. It's just, because it's a narcotic. And because I hurt sometimes, yeah, I can go on to where I'm taking oxys or hydros, but I don't, because if I do, if I'm prescribed those on a monthly basis, I have to give up the Valium, because you can't be prescribed both. They can prescribe you both when you have a medical procedure done because it's short term, but they can't prescribe it to you full term if you're on. You have to pick or choose. And that was the same way with my pain management. Pain management said I can put you on hydros or oxys, but you're going to have to choose. At the time, I wasn't on the Valium when I first started seeing her. She said, but you're going to have to pick or choose the medical marijuana or that. I can't let you be on both. So that's why I do the injections, because I don't have to choose on the pain management of being put on painkillers. I can do the injections and not be put on painkillers. And for a few weeks, I feel at normal. And then after that, after a few weeks, sometimes it's a few days, sometimes it's a few weeks, I start feeling the effects again, and I'm back stiff, and I can't move my neck back and forth. I have to turn my when I'm driving. You guys, sometimes it's scary when I drive because I can't turn my neck to look see if traffic's coming. When I'm merging, I have to turn my whole effing body. So Ninny's pushing to try to have my driver's license taken from me, but she thinks that would put the nail in the coffin, and I wouldn't come out of my room if I did that. So she's kind of laid off on doing that. They let me drive local here a little bit. I don't drive when I'm on my Valium or whatever. Someone else takes over driving. Because if I was to get pulled over and the doctor looks at my medicine bag and sees I got fucking Valium in there, I'm going to be given a field sobriety test. And I would pass it. I'm on it enough. Been long enough now that it wouldn't affect me. But it's a narcotic you got to sign for. But I'm just telling you guys right now, when I find this out, because they're gonna rescan me again in May. I may have to wait till May until they rescan me. Um, if she tells me I've just got X amount of months to go, I might, if I'm around long enough to go to Tokyo Tea Fest, I might have a few beers with some of you guys. You guys are some of my favorite channels to watch. And it's like I explained to Amber, I know we got Oklahoma Casino Reviews, and you got Oklahoma Joe, and Jackpot Joe comes here to Oklahoma, Casanova Slots, FNS Slots. You got some of these other channels, the Galavanders, some of these other channels stream from Oklahoma slots. I am the only YouTube channel, hear me out. I am the only YouTube channel that lives in Oklahoma and streams slots in Oklahoma. Not taking nothing away from them. What they do is great. They're great people to watch. I encourage you to watch them. Even Big Slaughter comes to Oklahoma sometimes. But I am legitimately the only YouTuber from Oklahoma that lives in the state that films slots. Anyone else that films slots in Oklahoma doesn't physically live here. I do. I physically live where I play. And I loved it when we went to Biloxi. When we went to Mississippi to meet Beer Belly and Ron Gambles, I wish every day of the week I could go back there. I had such a blast. And it was weird not hearing them red screen bells. It was weird not having to look at a bingo pattern and know if it's a potential hit or whatever. And we didn't hit big money up there or anything. We enjoyed ourselves. Not only just with the slots, but we met great people. We got to see the scenery. We got to go and check out the ocean. We got to go and check out the aquarium. And we were up there and we missed my son. We went up there during my son's birthday. He turned 2 while we were up there. We missed that. We made up for it when we got back home. We had him for a week. He got spoiled like crazy once we got back home. But they're still young enough that they don't really understand, all that yet, And then later on today, I'll be seeing my 3-year-old granddaughter. She'll be over here asking me if I got loose change. I've already got change set out for her. So she's not digging in my wallet and grabbing my dollar bills or $5 bills or whatever. But I love each and every one of you guys. And I appreciate everyone that's went on this journey with me. You don't know how much it means to me and Amber to have you guys as part of our support group, along with family and friends. My family and friends have been a huge support of this. My kids have been a huge support of this. They all know that, and it's like I've told you guys shit tons of times. My son Isaiah has literally told me to my face. He said, "You have got to be the toughest guy I know." And he said, "I'm not saying that like strength wise of you being the toughest guy I know." He said, he said, since 2001, every year you get a new diagnosis of something being wrong with you, and you get knocked down, and you get back up, and you can continue fighting. I said, "Well, of course I'm going to continue fighting." He told me, "You're like a real life Rocky Balboa story, Dad. You get back up no matter how many times you go down." I said, "I do it because of all y'all. I do it because of myself. I don't sit in my room and mope and grope and bawl and cry. And what's that going to do for me? What's that going to do for me if I sit in my room and mope and cry and bawl and squall and not go out and try to do content for you guys?" I enjoy doing that. I love doing it. I love doing my home lives. I love doing the casino thing. I love to entertain. I'm a goofball. If you guys saw half the goofy shit I do when I'm not on camera, you would be totally shocked. I keep it to a mellow when I'm off camera. But when y'all see me in chat and y'all see me mouthing and saying off the wall shit, that's me being me. And Amber told me I need to, when I'm on camera, I need to start being the real me. Because I am straight up legitimately a goofball. And because I have these mental health problems, mental health people, some of the reason why they get into comedy is that's how they show that they're struggling, is through comedy. And so I guess that's how I show I struggle, is through comedy. But I love each and every one of y'all. I did a 2.5 hour video of this, of basically my life. We got a new grandbaby that's due July 3rd. My youngest son graduates in May. And when I stopped drinking so I can at least enjoy being able to see grandbabies and watch my kids graduate. And in May, what I stopped drinking for has concluded. I got to be a grandpa. Am I going to give up? Fuck no. Fuck no, I'm not giving up. But if I choose to start going back to my normal self and having a few beers every now and then, and not make it where it was last time, where I'm drinking 30 beers a day and the next day drinking like that again. I'm not going to go back into that state of mind whatsoever. But I might have a few beers and shit, you know? I might have a Scooby snack while I'm at Tokyo Tea Fest. Hell, I might have a Tokyo Tea. I don't know. I mean, it's one thing we all have in common, guys, is we all are going to die. The time of when it happens, we don't know. But this is a story of Pop Pop. This is how I went from James to Pop Pop. And I don't regret any of it. Some of it I went out of order on, and I apologize for that. And I grew up poor as shit. I became a very successful man. And I'm not making six figures now. No, I'm not making six figures. But we're well enough set that I think we're comfortable in life. Yeah, I do. Because I invested my money once I found out shit was going wrong with me. I knew I wasn't going to make six figures anymore. I knew I wasn't going to make $200,000+, and that's be able to blow $1,000 a weekend, and it be nothing. Now, I'm a pop. I'm a YouTuber. Hopefully one of these days I actually get to 1,000 subs on YouTube. I got 3,200 subs on TikTok. I got, I think, pretty close to 1,300 subs on my Facebook group page. I neglect the hell out of them. Once I finish this, I'll upload it over there. All I ask out of all y'all is to watch this story. This is my life. This is my life. Just like the song goes from Bon Jovi. I'm probably going to do it the day we do the benefit. A friend of mine brought it to light to me during Christmas. A friend of mine named Jacob. More or less like family. It was his dad's favorite song. It's my life, and I'm going to live it my way. And it's like, I tell my wife and kids, I tell them, and this isn't a joke, this isn't me trying to be funny. My wife and kids know at my funeral, I want, let the bodies hit the floor, and another woman bites the dust being played. It is in my will that it is to be played at my funeral. And it's not to, it's because that's who I am. I'm a jokester, guys. When I did my dad's eulogy at his funeral, I didn't get up there and start crying and stuff. I got up there, had a Dr. Pepper in my hand because my dad loved Dr. Pepper. I said, "This is the dad, and all you," and he'd be ashamed of all you motherfuckers out in the audience crying because he wouldn't want that. I'm a funny guy. When my grandma died, I got up and spoke, and I was being funny and goofy. That's how I show remorse, is comedy. I don't sit there and tear up and cry. I had a couple of friends that died. One of cancer, one of he had some bad health problems. I've had a few friends die of bad health problems before they were 50. Am I the next person to go? We don't know. I got friends that are going to be at this benefit that are ex-high school patrons that I hadn't seen in years. One of my friends, me and him went through law enforcement together. We've known each other since we were in first grade. But if y'all are in Oklahoma in April and you want to come to that benefit, April 6th, don't fill out a place. Get your room at Choctaw. Fuck, after WrestleMania is over that night, I'll go down to Choctaw and fucking gamble with you. I'll go down to Choctaw and hang out with you. I was really excited about going to Slot Fiesta. We had to change that. We made up for it by going to Mississippi. We had to change that because of the fact that I had a doctor's appointment during Slot Fiesta. Now that's been canceled. So now I wish I wouldn't have canceled the Slot Fiesta thing, because now basically what I was going to spend during Slot Fiesta, I had saved up for, we did that while we were at Mississippi, but I don't regret it. We had the time of our life in Mississippi, guys. You couldn't knock the smile off my wife's face. I don't think I would have got that same smile out of her if we'd have been in Nevada. I really don't. She would have enjoyed herself and enjoyed being around all you guys and enjoyed seeing the faces behind the people we follow. And that's one thing that she liked when we were up in Mississippi, meeting Ron and Beer Belly. She got to meet some faces that we follow. We've met the Gallivanters before. Next week, I think Jackpot Joe and the Casanovas are going to be here. The Casanovas were the very first channel I ever became a channel member to. They were the first channel I was ever a channel member to. And then they stopped doing the channel membership because they wasn't able to go to the casino as much. I'm thinking about going and meeting up with them next week while they're down here at Choctaw. I'll probably have to have one of my kids take me, because Amber's working. Her work schedule's supposed to change soon. We don't know when. But anyway, so I've kept y'all on here 2 hours and 40-something minutes. Please watch this video all the way through. I love each and every one of you guys. Y'all all have been a coping mechanism for me getting through this. You really have. I started watching slots in 2017, back before some of you guys were ever channels that I watch now. I started out watching SD Guy, Brian Christopher, JB Elaw, Erica Slot World, Aaron's slots. They were like the only 4 or 5 channels that was out there. I know Vegas Low Roller and all them were already started, but I wasn't watching him at the time. That was basically my 4 or 5 channels that were doing that. And I watched Erica and JB because they filmed in Oklahoma. They were the only ones filming in Oklahoma at the time. And then, but later on, FNS and Casanova's come along, and Jackpot Joe, you know, he come along, and then the Galavanders, I come across them. And then I come across Oklahoma Center Reviews, Oklahoma Joe. There's other red screen channels out there, FNS Slots. Some of them I watch, some of them I don't. I try to support all of them. AWR, he's a new slot guy. There's tons of red screen channels out there, and some of them I watch, some of them I don't. There are channels I'm faithful to, you know. I never thought I'd fall in love with the West Coast people like I did. Fact of the matter is, y'all's games are right here in Oklahoma. We have Dragon Links, we have Lightning Links, we have Mighty Cash, we have the Buffalo games, we have you know, the Checkered Flag, we have the one where you get the Super Grand Chance, whatever it's called. It's got the pirate guy and the Egyptian thing or whatever, and then Kung Fu Master, all that. We have Keno, we have video poker, we have all that here. You guys have helped me cope. Watching you guys do this every day on YouTube helps me cope. I go to sleep at night watching a YouTube channel. Whether it's Barber playing slots, whether it's the Casanovas, whether it's the Yoshis, whether it's Man vs. Slots, whether it's Vegas Low Roller, SD Guy, I go to sleep at night watching somebody's slot video because it relaxes me. It helps me. But we're at 2 hours and 46 minutes into this video. I love each and every one of y'all. Please watch this all the way through. It's a story of how I grew up, how I became successful, and how I became a grandfather. And what my original grandfather's name was going to be, too. So make sure you watch the whole video. I love you all. I thank you all for being part of me and Ninny. I thank you all for that very much. Without y'all, none of this is possible. I don't have 500 or some odd subs on YouTube without you guys helping. And I was at a casino today, as a matter of fact. I was at one of our store casinos, so I didn't run a camera while I was in there. I don't run cameras when we're inside the store casinos. That's a big no-no. I just don't do it. I probably could. The lady sitting beside me, she was playing that coin trio game where you can buy the bonus. She didn't buy a bonus. She hit $1,800 on an 880 bet. I was sitting beside her playing the Piggly Wiggly Squiggly one. I bought a bonus for the first time in my life. I had $35. I bought a bonus, and I made $54 off of it. And I hit a backup spin and got out of it, and went and played something else. But I love you guys. If you are at the casino, you don't win if you don't spin. Make sure you watch this all the way through. And from the bottom of me and Ninny's heart, I love y'all, and we thank y'all. And this is the story of how James became Pop Pop. Peace.